Okay, so welcome to the other side, no? Okay, so we're going to start na, and here we go. Okay, so I'm giving you a fresh, I don't know, since fresh link tayo. So anytime na maputol tayo or for some reason, we end up na maubos ito, tong 40 minutes natin ngayon, just re-enter ha. Re-enter. Okay. So here we go. Let's begin. Again, once again, good morning sa inyo. Thank you for being here. So we just decided what you're going to do, no? So to the three or maybe four people na hindi nag-vote, well, it's up to you. Huh? Could have could have influenced, no? Whatever your decision was. Okay. So sige, let's talk about the ethical principles. This is the second part. So please remember na last time we talked about autonomy and the different rights and consents nung pasyente, no? So this time, let's talk about the principle of beneficence. So ano ba tong beneficence, no? This is something na lumalabas talaga sa board exam. So it's the practice of doing acts of kindness and charity. Now, please take note, this is something very proactive. In short, this is something na you're choosing to do. And that is why sinasabi dito is, do no harm and produce the good, while do good and do no harm also captures the essence as well. Now, this principle is often discussed uh, hand in hand, no, with another one, which is the principle of non-maleficence. Ano ibig sabihin nito? Well, it's quite similar to the duty of beneficence. It's just that it is said in a negative way. And I'm just using my own words to make it simple for you, but it means na not doing anything that could harm or hurt a patient or anybody for that, I don't know, for that sake, no. So it also means to work to maximize the good for the patient and yun nga, no, to minimize harm. So for example, hanggang boards exam na to ha, hanggang boards na to, remember this. Kapag maganda or positive yung pagkasabi niya, then that would be beneficence. Pero pag sinabing iwasan ito, wag gawin ito, then that's going to be more of non-maleficence. Now, if you look at the photo on the right, it's actually a Soviet Union soldier, no, which is what Russia was before Russia is today, no. So when they were at war with Germany, no, the one on the left, no, is actually a German soldier. Kahit daw, remember, kahit daw prisoner of war, may karapatan din, no. So it doesn't take away, no, the humanity of it all, even though war is war. Okay. Now we also have the principle of veracity, which is essentially what it means is to tell the truth, no? So veracity is truth. And what makes this important binds both us, no, and the patient in what is known as an association of truth. Ibig sabihin, both of us are required to tell each other the truth. I can remember how many, my goodness, no, yung mga teachers ko, yung mga professor ko, mga consultants ko, mga sobrang galing na, no? How many of them unnecessarily, although sinabi natin, no, as fate would have it, panahon na nila, how unnecessarily they died, in my opinion, just because the people simply lied about having COVID symptoms, no? Or rather, simply lied about not having COVID symptoms. At sila pa ang galit. And the worst part about it is that yung taong nag-infect sa kanila na nagsinungaling, sila pa ang buhay, no? Grabe talaga. So, this one hits me to the core, no? The principle of veracity. But in reality, remember, we are obligated to tell each other the truth, lalo na sa history natin. Okay. Justifications for telling the truth. Why is it that we're telling the truth? Because denying knowledge from a person about their condition as a patient will take away their human and moral quality as persons. What does that mean? That means na if we do not tell you the truth or the entire idea, the entire concept, no, ng information or the entire context of what we're discussing, para ko nang deny yung pagkatao mo. Why? I am denying you the respect which is supposed to be there in any human interaction of the highest level. So if you tell the truth, you don't have to remember anything. That's one of the things I really like, no? That if you see the photo on the right, napakahirap actually. Uh, when you try to construct a lie, you have to come up with so many details and you have to remember each and every one of them, no? So as when you just tell the truth, you don't have to remember anything because you don't have to. Of course, you have to remember it, but the point is, there's not really much effort because you're just telling what it was, no? No need to construct a farce, no? Just to create a lie. So, ano pa? The source of information is the patient, and hence denying knowledge is akin to stealing from the patient. In short, what happens is this: binibigyan mo ako ng history, tapos syempre dapat babalik ko sa yung diagnosis ko or what we think, no? Ano yung plano natin, ano yung diagnosis plan or treatment plan. Pag hindi ko sinabi ng buong buo sa iyo, parang lugi si pasyente. That's why sinabi, it's akin, no? If you're not familiar with the word, akin means similar to stealing from the patient. Ano pa? If you go back to prelims, do you remember that one of the highest, no, the highest levels of human interactions between a physician and a patient, or just simply, no, the healthcare team, no, and the patient. So once again, it is based on mutual confidence and respect for each other's rights. So kailangan talaga, if you're going to preserve the relationship, then you have to tell the truth. Ano pa? So let's just read this for a while, no? Denying knowledge about his own impending death deprives a person ample time to prepare for his own death or carry out responsibilities on his own actions or decisions. What does that mean? Ganito. Kunwari, you're in the ICU, tapos you have a patient na so far, no? And I've seen this happen so many times. My goodness, believe me, it's a lot more common than you think. On duty ka sa ICU, let's say, let's make it more dramatic or realistic, no? 11 to 7 ka, graveyard shift. And then suddenly, no, yung pasyente nagising or kung gising man siya, been waiting for you na mag-rounds, no? And just said, kamusta ako, no? Mamamatay na ba ako? They can be very frank, no? And you really have the option of telling them, ay, hindi pa, okay ka lang, no? Walang problema. Nonood pa tayo ng, baka nga, maabutan mo pa yung ano eh, no? Yung season 2 ng She-Hulk or whatever, kung magkakaroon man, no? O, ganun. Or you're like Carla Dalisay, man, you're so healthy. O, ganyan, no? Kahit alam naman nating hindi. So, nangyayari is, that person will most likely what? Most likely trust you, most likely believe you, or maybe tatawa lang ng saglit, then maybe, no, isipin niya na, hindi naman pala ako malubha. So, anong mangyayari nun? Instead of telling him the truth na you may die any moment, or maybe you're actually dying, instead of ang gagawin niya is to prepare for his death, instead of letting him call his family and prepare his affairs before he dies, like eto yung mga pin code ko sa aking mga bank account, eto yung mga lupa-lupa ko, eto yung mga etong cellphone ko, pamigay ko kay ganito, eto yung mga gamit ko, ganyan-ganyan. You deprive that person of that opportunity. So, ang nangyari tuloy is gulo-gulo yung pamilya nila, no? That's one. And syempre, I'll tell you right now, no, not every patient is given that opportunity to acknowledge his death, no? Yung iba biglaan lang talaga. So, siya nga nabigyan sana ng opportunity, tas hindi mo pa sinabi yung totoo, edi parang inalisan mo siya. Talagang deprive natin siya ng opportunity na binigay sana sa kanya na makipag-ayos sa mga tao bago siya pumanaw. Okay? So that's something to talk about. Okay. Now, is there a reason we can withhold information from patients? It's not really, well, ako honestly, I disagree with this, but theoretically, we have what is known as benevolent deception. No? And what does it mean? It means that based on sound medical judgment, information might potentially harm the depressed and unstable patient for an unpleasant fact. Now, I remember two things about this. One, if you look at the photo on the right, now those are nursing students, so they're essentially you, no? Essentially you, learning how to do vital signs. So most likely nangyari na ito sa'yo, siguro kinato ka ng kapitbahay mo or I don't know, tita, tito mo saying, oh, di ba magaling ka na mag blood pressure taking. So kunin mo naman yung BP ko, di ba? Tapos ang ginawa mo, sige, kinuha mo yung BP niya. And then ang mangyayari, o pag-check mo 200 over 120, nako, no? So, pwede na pambili ng ano, no, yung term diyan, pwede na pambili ng lechon manok, no? Yung ano niya, or liempo, no, yung kanyang BP. So, ang nangyayari, yeah, but sabihin mo ba totoo? You're going to say na, oh, mataas talaga yung, ay, nako, tito, tita, sobrang taas po ng BP niyo, delikado ito. Oh, so anong mangyayari? Eh di syempre mas tataas yung BP niya lalo, 'di ba? Mas kinabahan. So at the risk of stroke or anything like that. Now, on the other hand, you can say na, okay lang naman po. Oh, syempre kayo, no? But okay naman po yung BP ninyo. So that is known as benevolent deception. Okay, I do not agree with it. Maybe the important thing there for me is learning how to talk to patients effectively, no, without lying. But theoretically, this is known as benevolent deception. Now, the second situation I remember was that we had a patient na matanda na and who had seven or eight children ata. And then it turns out na siya, no, she was dying already. Tapos, we were doing the family genogram. Yun yung family history, no? Yung sino yung mga anak niya, ano yung relationship, buhay pa ba, patay na, ganyan, ganyan. It turns out na she's 88 years old and she's on her deathbed. Nagpapatawag na siya ng family niya, no? So hindi siya na-deprive ng chance na yun, no? And yun nga, no, 88 years old on her deathbed, pinapatawag niya mga anak niya, at least those who were in time. Tapos tas ayun na, namatay siya, no? So, in a way, if you look at it, parang maganda naman in a way, no? Hindi siya hirap, ganyan, namatay lang siya. Okay. The problem was, what is the connection to this, no? Simple lang. Nung chinek namin yung genogram, sabi namin, "Hala, bakit patay na yung isang anak niya? Ba't hindi ano, hindi niya alam?" So ayun, sinabi nung family, hindi na nila pinaalam na kakamatay lang nung anak niya. Kasi daw, baka matuluyan pa lalo, no? Mamamatay pa with a broken heart, no? So, again, no? Dying on a hospital bed and it turns out na 3 or 4 or maybe 1 week earlier lang namatay yung anak mo. My goodness, no? Baka matuluyan nga talaga. So, yun. That's an idea. That's an example of deception. Again, that's withholding information from patients, no? According to sound medical judgment. Sige. So two approaches to telling the truth, that would be person-centered or problem-centered. So in the person-centered approach, you're seeing the person as a patient na nagkataon lang meron siyang condition or disease, no? Something that is entirely separate, no, from his person, from his identity. Nagkataon lang na incidentally meron siyang medical condition. Okay. On the other hand, meron ding problem-centered approach, which considers the patient's condition, illness, or disease. Okay. So this is something that happens actually very common in the ward, no? So ang nangyayari is that instead of calling the patient, si patient, kunwari, na, because of data privacy, no? Si patient na nasa room 301 or 302. Oh, kamusta siya? No? People end up saying, si cancer. Or sa hypertension, no? Oh, so yun ang nangyayari. Now, we see the person instead as the problem or in reality as the diagnosis, no? So it somewhat dehumanizes people daw. Again, no? That's another effect of the privacy thing, no? Na can you imagine, no? Going into the doctor's office, hindi pwede banggitin yung pangalan mo, so they're gonna call you instead and say, "Oh, yung pasyente na may hemorrhoid, no? Or yun, yung hirap tumae, pumasok ka na. O, di ba? Nakakahiya din, no? So, yun lang, no? So, that's the problem-centered. approach to truth telling. Now, when it comes to relationships, dalawa, no? Dalawa. It's the I, it, and then I, thou. Now remember, these are very relative. Ibig sabihin, it's I and my relation to an it and I and my relation to a thou or a you. And eto yun, no? Sa I, it means na the person's relationship with things or objects. In short, objects are tools, no? Tools that are meant to be used to just to for as a means to an end, no? And then of course, according to Martin, I don't know, no, Buber, Bubber, Bube, whatever. Di na malalabas sa exam paano mo pinopronounce yan, no? So, the I thou naman is yung person's relationship with other people. Now, again, some philosophers will say, no, man ng konti, no, yung I, it, and I thou, the problem though begins in human relationships when we begin to see other people as tools, no, that are just meant to be used, which really happens, no. So, self-awareness, no, self-awareness. But remember, no, it doesn't mean, no, na you're working towards a common goal, eh, ginagamit mo na, no? Hindi naman ganun yon, kasimple. Okay, we also have the principle of fidelity, which is about loyalty, trustworthiness, reliability, and faithfulness. So if I were you, fidelity is faithfulness, no? In reality, no, if you study Latin, fide, no? Fide is actually faith, no? Fide. So it requires healthcare practitioners to faithfully practice within the constraints of the role. Wag sobrahan, no? Wag din bawasan. Okay. So, if you saw the movie on the right, I hope you liked it, no? Kakatuwa yung movie na yan, no? It's all about fidelity. Sige. Now, the principle of justice, it's rendering what is due or merited. So, example is quantum meruit. And what is this principle? It simply means, no? It simply means na as much as you deserve. So, kunwari, no? Parang sweldo ng ibang tao, no? Nilalagay nila, quantum meruit na lang, ganun na lang. So, kaya may mga tao nagsasweldo na 300, 400, 500,000 a month, no? May mga ganyan talaga. Kasi gano'n kaimportante yung role nila sa mga organization. Gano'n din naman ka 24/7 yung trabaho nila, no? Sacrificing the family or in reality, personal time. So, gano'n lang din, okay? So, if you're wondering bakit yung photo on the right, no? Simple lang. This is actually part of the Injustice series. So, if you're not familiar with it, then just a heads up, know what it's actually about. So, you have their Joker, tapos ang ginawa niya was actually niloko niya si Superman. I forgot kung paano, pinigan ba niya, pinainom ba niya, or in-expose niya sa Joker gas niya or something. So, nangyari was that, nakita ni Superman na brainwash siya into thinking na nandun yung kalaban niya. No? Yun si Doomsday. So, syempre, Superman being Superman, siyempre, kinalaban niya, pinatay niya, pinagsuntok, pinagbugbog niya si Doomsday until Doomsday died, no? Parang ganun, or at least was kicked out, no? Out of the planet. So, here's the problem. When the effect of the gas or kung anumang drug yon faded, nakita niya na ang pinatay pala niya is not Doomsday, but yung asawa niya, si Lois Lane, no? Who was actually pregnant, no? So, talagang galit na galit siya. So, ayun, no? Bumalik siya at napatay niya si Joker, no? Kasi daw, sumobra ka na, yung pagkatao mo, wala ka nang ginawang kabutihan sa kapwa mo, ayun, napatay niya. So, that is now the turning point between Batman and Superman, no? Yung justice daw, no? Sige. So, dito siya naging dictator and then the whole Injustice saga came in, no? And then, syempre, Batman being Batman, no? Nagre-rebel din na hindi daw dapat talaga pumatay, no? Okay. So, that's the principle of justice. Okay, now there are two types of justice. One is comparable, one is non-comparable. Yung comparable means the patient receives what is determined by gravity, no? Yung severity of a condition or need. And yung non-comparable is determined by a certain standard. So ganito yun. Kunwari, you have an available kidney, tapos ang pwede mong bigyan, isa lang, no? So pumili tayo, no? Dalawa yung pasyente natin, yung isa matanda na, pero sobrang nangailangan, yung isa naman bata pa, pero kaya-kaya pa 'no? Nagda-dialysis silang dalawa, pero eto bagong dialysis pa lang, okay. Of course, pareho silang may renal failure, pero sinong mas nangangailangan? O sige, if you do it by comparable type of justice, yung gravity nila is mas nangangailangan. Of course, this is an oversimplification, pero mas nangangailangan yung matanda. Okay? Ganun kasimple. Mas kailangan niya yon para mabuhay. Okay? Although pareho naman sila nagda-dialysis, the point here is that the gravity of it, no? Hirap siya maglakad, hirap mga activities of daily living, stuff like that. Kasi nga matanda na. And it would really help out a lot kung he could take care of himself better, no? If he had an actual new kidney na matatanggap. Now, if you go to non-comparable, how does the situation change? Well, ganito na lang. Sa comparable kasi, yung factor na iisipin mo intrinsic or nasa pasyente. Sa non-comparable, yung standard mo nasa labas. It does not involve the patient. Ano ibig sabihin nito? So kunwari, balik tayo doon sa bata at matanda, no, na nagda-dialysis, parehong nangailangan ng bagong kidney. So kanino mo siya ibibigay? Simple lang, kung sino yung nauna. Sino yung nauna na magpalista sa organ donation or organ donor recipients. So in short, the standard is not within the patients but outside, no? So yun ang non-comparable type of justice. Okay, so how do we exactly distribute resources na alam naman natin is very limited? In fact, that is the very definition of politics, but it's the distribution of resources. But for some reason, yung politics ngayon, yung iba yung pagkakaintindi natin, no? I don't know about you, but politics is supposed to be the allocation of resources, and it's just different, no? Sige, so we have inclusion, comparison, or random selection. Yun yung ating pamamaraan. At may mga subtypes ito. Like for example, in inclusion, you have constituency, the progress of science, and success. Okay? Constituency, progress of science, and success. Kasama yan sa inclusion. Now, what is constituency? Ganito kasimple yon. Ang resources ng isang barangay ay para sa mga taga-barangay. Ganun kasimple, no? Again, kunwari, ganito, ang resources ng bahay mo ay para sa bahay mo, sa mga taga-bahay mo. Ganun kasimple. So how can we make an example of this, no? If you see the photo on the right, you were actually we were in Quezon City, and we were teaming up with a barangay to do deworming, no? Check namin yung mga bata for anemia, other nutritional deficiency, stuff like that. So, ang nangyayari kasi ganito. So, meron kang, if you've ever been to a medical mission before, here's what happens. After you see a patient, hindi yan magtatawag ng kapitbahay. Although magtatawag naman sila na, "Oh, may medical mission dun sa barangay, punta kayo," gano'n, gano'n. But, Pinoy being Pinoy, hindi lang sila magtatawag ng kapitbahay, they're actually going to say or they're going to text their other, kapit-barangay people na, "Oh, may medical mission kami sa barangay namin, punta kayo." Te-text nila, 'no? So, nangyayari nagdadagsaan talaga yung mga tao. So, ang nangyayari is masa-strain yung resources. So, there now comes our problem. Kailangan namin siya nga taga-barangay kasi nga resources ito ng barangay. Siyempre naman yung kabila magsasabi, "Oh, hindi man kami taga-barangay na 'to, pero tao din kami, no? Dapat kami inuuna niyo kasi kami yung mga dukha." Ano, yun yung mga lumalabas sa mga bibig nila, no, kahit ano-ano na. So, nagkaroon kami ng compromise, ganito. Inuna namin yung mga taga-barangay at kung tapos na, anumang resources na naiwan, ibibigay namin kasi masasayang din naman. Okay? So yun yung tinatawag na constituency. Now, progress of science, can new knowledge be gained from the case? So yun. This may be a bit morbid, no, if you look at it, pero kunwari, you have a very limited amount of medications na walang-wala na, like what happened to COVID, 'di ba? Napunta tayo sa ano yun, ivermectin, napunta tayo sa ano pa, dun sa ibang well, the steroids help, no? The steroids really helped a lot, no? But napunta pa tayo sa mga ibang antivirals, no, na dating 1,000 nagiging 60,000 ang isa, no? Ganun katindi yung Pilipino talaga, grabe. So, yun. Kunwari, you have bottles of that wonder experimental not so sure drug, but it could give a fighting chance, no, sa mga walang-wala na talaga. And then you have 20 or 100 patients, no? So, kanino mo ibibigay, 'di ba? So, doon na lang. Didistribute mo na lang sa mga ano, doon sa mga relevant na sakit, no? Doon sa makakatulong na lang sa pag-aaral ng disease, no? So, yun, you have to screen the patients properly na ito, ubusipon lang, ito may COVID talaga. Stuff like that, no? So, it's a progress of science. Okay, we also have success. So, ganito, limited lang yung drugs mo, no? Yung medicines mo. O eto, magiging effective ba to? Eh, matanda na yan eh. O eto, bata pa, no? Sayang naman, no? So, ganon. It matters also, these things. Sige. Now, we also have comparison. The likelihood of successful treatment compared with others in the group. This is very similar to what we talked about, kung bata o matanda. Life expectancy ng tao. Sabihin na, bigay mo na lang or operahan na lang natin, no? Pwede din, no? Operahan natin yung mas bata, mas malaki yung chance niya mag-survive. Tapos sasabihin naman ng isa, pero yung matanda kasi breadwinner yun, no? Taka, ano yun, sabihin na lang natin, congressman yun, no? Or, I don't know, maybe presidente yun, no? So, yun yung record of services or contribution to society. So, yun ang mga nag-aagawan talaga ng resources, no? So, yeah, that's reality, no? That's reality talaga. So, be open to that. It's really going to happen in the hospital. Although, as much as possible, of course, if you're in the emergency room, inuuna talaga yung malubha, no? Tapos yun namang nasa labas, while you're in the pre-hospital setting, inauna mo yung mas mabubuhay, no? Like mga disaster, ganun yung triage talaga. Okay, you also have random selection according to James Childress or Childress ba yan? Paano ba binabanggit yan? Which is simply, no, first come, first serve, or like for example, may lottery tayo, no? Sinong mananalo, draw, mananalo ng bagong kidney, stuff like that, no? Or first come, first serve, like what we talked about. But that would be according to random selection. Now, may nagtanong na dati, ano ba meaning ng random sa random selection? Well, of course, we understand na like anybody can win, no? But by definition, it's something similar to this. Everybody has an equal chance of being drawn, no? Or to be more specific, everyone has an equal non-zero chance of a particular outcome. Ganun na lang, no? So I hope that makes sense to you. Okay, we also have the principle of double effect, and it's an act that's foreseen to have both good and bad effects, no? So, like for example, when you go to the legislative, no? Legislative sense, no? Maalala nyo, maybe was it 2 years ago na ang sinabi, no? Davao City will essentially ban, no, the sale of alcohol. Now you have to correct that, no? Hindi naman binan yung alcohol, eh. Yung alcoholic beverages. Ang binan talaga was the sale, no? The sale, yung pagbenta. So in short, kung meron ka na sa bahay mo, by all means, ubusin mo, di ba? Kung gusto mo. And just be accountable for yourself. But yun nga, binawal nila yung pagbenta. Now, if you're any regular person in Davao City, you know na kung talagang gusto mo, magkakaroon ka ng, gusto mong bumili, may mabibilang ka. Now, what does that mean? Remember that dalawang effect niyan. Whenever you ban something, you're also creating a black or gray market for that, no? Ganun kasimple. So, kaya maraming mga memes or mga jokes na lumalabas during the pandemic or at least during the height of the pandemic na no, na uy saludo kami sa mga fallen heroes daw, no? Fallen heroes na nag-try mag-smuggle ng mga case ng beer, no, sa loob ng kabaong, mga ganun, no? Nakakatuwa talaga yung mga tao, no? Tapos pinapa-food delivery pa nila, o 'di ba? Gumagawa ng paraan. So yun. Now in this case, a double effect is simply, I know you're studying pharmacology and that's it, no? Um you have a good effect na gusto natin ibigay sa pasyente, so you give a drug, pero meron siyang side effect. Kunwari, no? Typical NSAIDs natin, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, o nakakatanggal ng inflammation and pain, pero dalawang tinitira niya. Tinitira niya yung stomach lining mo or yung gastric lining and the kidney. Okay? So take note of that, yung mga matatanda, tapos may renal failure or kidney failure, or tawag na natin ngayon is chronic kidney disease. Yung iba sa kanila talaga inabuso yung mga gamot, no? Mga paracetamol, ibuprofen, stuff like that, no? Okay. But then again, more importantly, no, this is a reflection of yung mga pregnancy categories natin sa mga gamot. Okay. So considerations dito kasi may good and bad effect, di ba? So ang importante dito at least, sinasadya mo yung good. Ano pa? Maliban sa sinasadya mo yung good, kailangan yung good and bad somewhat magkasabay or mauuna ng konti si good bago si bad. So para bang after effect na lang siya. Tapos ano pa, no? Ito nga, no? Bad effect may be permitted to occur after the intention of good effect. No? Pero as much as possible, iwasan mo. Okay. Next, we have the principle of stewardship, and believe it or not, it all goes back to the Bible, no? So, sabi, no? And God said, let us make man in our image after our likeness, and let them have dominion, no? That's the word there, dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, over all of the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. So, in short, ano bang sabi, no? If I'm not mistaken, no? Pinangalanan ni Adan, no? Is it Adan? Tama ba? Adan yung sa Tagalog, no? Pinangalanan niya yung mga creatures in the world, no? Which we're still doing now. We're still discovering new species and giving them names, believe it or not. No? Now, what is the importance of this? It means having dominion over things. It means having responsibility over these things. And as stewards, we should act faithfully, not to harm, but to actually protect them, to improve, to care for them. Kasi nga, yun yung utos. And to treat with respect, and if the situation calls for it, originality and creatively cultivate, know and respect their limits. No mga stewardship na rin natin. Okay? Why? Just remember na may stewardship na personal, so sa sarili mo, katawan mo, buhay mo, gamit mo na rin, no? Social, sa kapwa, ecological is yung, of course, the ecosystem. So in case na makalimutan mo, ecological is more of the environment, and biomedical, no? Mga resources natin in the medical context in the hospital, okay? Or hospital or clinical, ganun na lang. Now, we also have the principle of totality, which means that the whole implies the existence of the parts. Ibig sabihin, pag may nakita ka isang buo, suggestive na it's composed of other things. And eto pa, yung existence ng mga parts indicates na merong existence ng buo. So I don't know kung ibutan nyo ito on the right, no? I believe this is a Power Rangers thing. I could be wrong, no? But, oo nga, mukhang Power Rangers ito dati. So during our time, we had yung Power Rangers, and they had their machines, no? Yung mga kakotse nila, mga sasakyan nila. And then pag matatalo na sila, magko-combine sila, no? Into lima yan sila, magko-combine sila into nakalimutan ko na yung pangalan ng robot na to. Bottom line is each person played a role for the whole, no? Para mabuo itong robot na ito. And of course, natatalo nila yung kalaban, and paulit na naman next episode, same formula, di ba? But it was kind of fun though. So what does it mean, no? It refers to the whole, itong totality. And obligasyon mo daw is to use and care and preserve for all your parts. Kasi if you take care of each part of your body, lalo na si alak, no? Alak abused liver, no? It will be good for the entire body mo. So it also means na whenever we have therapies or we have things to do, then that means you have to consider the entire person. Hindi lang yung sakit niya, no? And the procedures a patient should receive should be able to take care of or address the entire body. Okay. Ano pang ibig sabihin nito? A member of the human body is to be disposed of. That's not accordingly, that's accordingly as it may profit the whole. Ibig sabihin, no? Sadly, may mga pasyente tayong diabetic, mga manhid na yung paa nila kaya nasusugat sila at hindi nila nalalaman, at pag nalaman nila, usually too late na, no? And what I mean with too late is that kailangan ng putulin. Okay? So why does it happen? Please remember this, ha? Remember this. If you have diabetic patients sa bahay nyo, make sure na maganda yung kanilang mga, of course, yung kanilang paa, meaning malinis, no? Walang mga sugat, but you have to give them protective na mga slippers or mga sandals or shoes, no? Kung appropriate. Kasi baka matinik yan ang hindi mo nalalaman, no? Kita mo na lang, kinain na. So bakit nga ba gano'n, no? May nagtanong na dati sa akin, bakit nga ba manhid or hindi masyadong nararamdaman yung mga gano'n sa diabetes? Simple lang. Decreased perfusion means decreased yung blood supply, nutrients sa nerves, and the nerves are not going to be that effective. Some of them will be dying already. Then, same thing, no? Namamatay na rin yun by yung outermost layer of the skin natin, which is mostly reliant on diffusion. So, pansinin nyo, pag yung mga diabetic patients nyo, yung mga paa nila, dating may mga buhok-buhok yung mga toes nila. Ngayon, wala na, no? Or hindi na pantay. Then, take care of that, no? So, that's a warning sign already. Ito pa, pag ginawa ka mo, malamig. No? Dapat yung paa warm in a way, no? Hindi yung galing sa aircon, but, talagang malamig na siya. Okay? That's not a good thing. Talagaan sila. Okay? So, why is it that we have to take care of them? Kasi kapag nakita, no, kailangan ng putulin. And if hindi natin puputulin, literal, kakainin yung buong katawan. Okay? So, if healthy, dapat hindi siya ika-cut na ika-sacrifice nung whole, and sacrifice only in the need to preserve life, no? So, another thing, no? Parang kinagat ka ng zombie, putulin mo na yung kamay mo. Parang ganun, no? Kaya sa maging zombie yung buong katawan mo. Bahala na maging zombie yung kamay mo. Okay. It happens in the movies, no? Okay. Now, principle of solidarity. Professionals may nurture and support the principle of organization for all the members. So remember this sa board exam. We have what is known as APO, no? APO or APO. These are accredited professional organizations. So we have the Philippine Nurses Association or the PNA. We have the PMA or the Philippine Medical Association sa mga doktor. And we have, if I'm not mistaken, no, PAMET, no? PAMET for mga medtech. Ano 'yun? Hindi ko na memorize, no. Sige. Now, professionals are obliged to put the broader interests of the profession above one's personal ambition and preference. Okay? So, uunahin daw ang profession. So, principle of cooperation, it comes from the Latin word. We may read it as cum, no? But it's actually cum, no? Cum and operari. So, it means to work with and to work with another in the performance of an action. Cooperation. Cum. Okay. So, participation of one agent or another to produce an effect or a joint effect or an outcome. Now, the question now is, can cooperation be wrong? And when does an action eliciting cooperation become wrong? It's when you're trying to deceive someone and when you're trying to produce an effect na hindi maganda. Ganun lang kasimple. Okay? So, believe it or not, no, nagtutulungan talaga ang mga tao sa hospital. So, I'm going to be frank with you on this. Minsan may mga palpak talaga like medicating errors, no? We study these things also. So minsan pinagtatakpan, no? Tinatago na lang, no? Uh, I'm not proud of it, but survival. Survival na lang. Lalo na kung okay lang naman yung pasyente in a way, no? Okay na hindi naman malubhay nangyari. Okay? So, yun ang principle of cooperation. Okay. So for the principle of ordinary and extraordinary means, we're going to end this muna and we're gonna get 10-minute break. Okay, 10 minutes lang, 10-minute break, and then we're going to start. Okay. So again, balik lang sa link and we'll see you there.
Recording stopped.